how does this all relate to resilience? In the simplest of ways, it's about our perspective. Why are some people resilient and some people not? Why am I resilient, right? Adaptable to change and to difficulty in some circumstances, but not in others. It's about my perspective. It's about my perspective. If when something bad happens, right, I take it really personally, like I blame myself, like, oh, well, of course this bad thing happened because I suck and I create these bad things and I deserve these difficulties, right? That is neither inclusive nor equanimous. There's no letting go in that. And so I'm going to have a very difficult time, right, overcoming and adapting to that difficulty. Because I'm blaming myself, and myself is the only constant, right? I'm not going to go anywhere. Right? But imagine the opposite, right? Imagine the optimistic viewpoint, right? Where something difficult happens, and I say, oh, yeah, that's interesting. Despite my best efforts and intentions, these external circumstances, these causes and conditions, these factors outside of my control led to this difficulty, led to this challenge, led to this seeming failure. Well, I guess I have to adapt now, right? You see how that just subtle change in perspective just allows me to have the exact same experience, to have the exact same challenge, right? But to work around, to avoid the trap of blaming myself for it, right? Of taking it on like, well, because this bad thing is happening, I am bad. That's inside of that space, right? Between the challenge and my own feeling about myself. That's where resilience lives. That's where resilience lives. Because if every time something bad happens, I look in the mirror and I take it all on, and pretty soon I have the identity that I am bad and that bad things happen to me all the time. And that identity is crushing, right? That identity is disempowering. Right? That identity leads to very negative places, to hopelessness and despair. And I know from personal experience. But if I have the identity that, wow, if I look back on that same endless litany of challenges that is our life, right? And I have the positive perspective of like, oh, isn't that interesting? Everything I've ever done, everything I've ever learned, everything I've ever achieved, everything I've ever enjoyed has a little bit of suffering in it, right? It came with some challenge, right? Everything I'm good at now, there was a time when I was a raw beginner at it, and so was quote unquote bad at it, right? Everything I'm successful in now, I'm successful in because I overcame failure after failure after failure and learned from it and adapted and grew. And so I can look at that exact same set of circumstances, that exact same life history from a very positive point of view. And if I do that, well, then I have the identity of a person who's very capable because that's what that history tells me. Problems come and I solve them. Difficult things happen and I move past them. I overcome. And that's true for all of us, And so resilience, as I like to look at it, is really about just marrying myself to a more positive psychological perspective, to a more positive story. The most resilient people I meet are telling the most optimistic, self-loving story about themselves and their relationship to the world. And the people that I meet that have the least resilience, the people that I meet that are the most quickly overwhelmed, are telling a very negative, very self-critical, very self-blaming story about themselves and the world.